Curt Menefee always finds time for What's the 411 when he's in time. Thank you very much. Listen, must be old hat to you by now. How do you make it fresher from the last time you guys were doing this?
Well, it's always different. I think the Super Bowl, when you're hosting it, when your network is hosting it, this is my third one with Fox, and it's as much an entertainment event as it is a sporting event. And so that always changes. You have different musical guests, you have different locations. This one, New York, is as much a part of the spotlight as the game is, as Bruno Mars or anybody else, because there's nowhere like New York City. So I think that keeps it fresh in and of itself. And then the other thing is, you only do it every 3 years.
Right.
So, it's not like you just did it last year and you go over and over and over. And finally, when I was a kid, this is all I wanted to do. So I'm never going to complain about having to be with the Super Bowl.
Does it help that you have two teams, Seattle and Denver, the number one and number two offensive and defensive teams, playing in this game?
Yeah. I think these are the two best teams in football. Not patting myself on the back by any means, but my preseason prediction on the air was
both of them.
Yeah, I had Denver and Seattle.
Yeah,
you go for it. Okay. I had Denver beating Seattle in the Super Bowl. I would switch sides right now because I think Seattle's going to win the game.
Okay.
But I had these two teams because I thought going into the season they were the two best teams in football. They stayed relatively healthy compared to most teams, especially Seattle. And I think at the end of the season they were the two best teams. Maybe San Francisco would probably be in that mix, but you had the feeling that whoever won the championship game between San Francisco and Seattle is probably going to be the Super Bowl champs. Now, look, it's hard picking against Peyton Manning, and that defense in Denver, I think, doesn't get enough respect, but I just think that what they've got going in Seattle is pretty special right now.
Looking back at the whole Richard Sherman situation, what was your initial reaction to it, and what was your reaction after everything started coming down?
My initial reaction to it is that I'll be honest, I wish I had caught it. Because, it was on our air.
Right.
Aaron Andrews was doing the interview.
Right.
But at that time of the post-game show, it's hard to explain to people. There's so much going on because we can't even get on the field until the game is over to get that studio set up. So that's, I won't say it's filler, but the interviews are going on while we're physically getting set.
Right.
So I kind of missed it. And I didn't see what was going on until after the fact. Because 5 minutes later, after he did the interview with Aaron, he came and sat down on the set with us.
Right.
And we just talked, and he was Richard.
Right.
Then afterwards, I found out about it. So I do feel a little responsibility for that. But it's just one of those things you looked at, and I'm like, this is what blew up? You watch, it's seconds after the guy made a play that helped send his team to the Super Bowl. The one negative I think you could point towards him probably wasn't the time to pat Michael Crabtree on the back and say, good game.
Right.
Because at that moment, he's in utter despair.
Right.
So I'm not saying instigating, but that wasn't a smart thing. But other than that, he didn't swear at anybody. He said he was the best, which 95% of these players think they are, because that's how they get there. I found the reaction and the overreaction absolutely amazing, but it's what the world is right now. It got to that point, there's like him and Justin Bieber and the weather.
Right.
I was like, if I hear anything more about these three topics, I'm going to go crazy.
But does that give it a little bit more responsibility to the networks in terms of trying to get that interview right there, not knowing what the reaction might be?
Yeah, but the flip side is, too, people complain about athletes being boring and rehearsed and only saying what's, So now you got the raw, true emotion of an athlete, and then you complain. So I think it's important to get that because I think it does show what guys are thinking. He's saying what all those guys in the field are thinking. I'm the best, don't challenge me. And people got upset about it. And so that's, I think, the reaction that caught me by surprise. I thought people would look at it and say, wow, that was cool, because it's raw, genuine emotion, not manufactured.
Finally, Curt, what are you going to be looking for, focusing on mostly about this game?
I think that the whole thing is about how Peyton Manning responds against the Seattle defense. Because I think that they bring pressure up the middle. Their defense is great overall. That's why they're number one. But they bring pressure up the middle just with their four pass rushers, unlike many guys can. And Peyton can't get out of the pocket like Colin Kaepernick could run around and those kinds of things. Now, Peyton, obviously, one of the best quarterbacks ever. He can throw the ball. They've got all kinds of weapons at the receivers. But I also think that Seattle has enough DBs to kind of cover those guys. They'd like to play up on you. It's not press coverage all the time, but they get physical. They play man-to-man. So I think that Peyton Manning trying to beat the pass rush, whether with quick throws and timing and that kind of thing, is going to be something to watch, because if he can't have success that way, I think that Seattle wins this game pretty easily.